essentially speaking, it is all saying that you should be independent. You shouldn't have a relationship with the company. Having said that, it's a non-executive position. You are not supposed to run the company. You are supposed to attend board meetings only. The structure is quite difficult in the sense that you are not supposed to run the company, yet there are a lot of responsibilities which comes on that independent director's head if there is a fraud which comes to light later. Otherwise, responsibilities are not as much. So an independent director is supposed to improve things and bring governance. Because you are an independent, chances are you shall vote for good practices. That's what the intent is. Does it happen? I don't think so all the time. But of course, those are discussions which can happen later on. We shall now, where I think the important issue here is that come 1st of December, you will see that there's a date called 1st of December 2019 mentioned, which means after 1st December 2019, you have to apply for IICA registration, which is called Indian Institute of Corporate Affairs registration. And come 1st of December, you should have had passed the self-proficiency test. Can you see? It is written pass a self-proficiency test. You should have passed a self-assessment test. Now, in order to become an independent director, there are two requirements. Either you have been in the, can you see here? Either you have been a director or KMP, key managerial personnel, for 10 years, or you pass the proficiency test. So if you have been a director or a key managerial personnel, like a CFO or a CEO, normally the CFO and the CEO is a KMP, and the company secretary is also, many organizations or most organizations are known or declared as a KMP. Then, and you have been there for 10 years, then you don't need to pass exam. And if you have not, then you have to pass this self-assessment test. And to my mind, this test is very much in favor of the finance professionals. It is completely in favor of the finance professionals, which I will show you a little later. So if you had to be there for 10 years as a director, if it's a listed company, no problem. If it's not a listed company, then the paid up share capital should have been more than 10 crores. What is the online proficiency test? This is what you have to be appearing for. Okay. What do I do? What to do? How do you qualify for the online proficiency test? Which perhaps is a question for many. Basically, it's a 100 marks paper. You can sit at home. You don't need to go anywhere. You can sit at home and appear for the self-proficiency test. Unlike CA exam also, there are no minimum attempts required. You can keep attempting every month, every 15 days, every week, no problem. And as and when you qualify, it doesn't really matter whether it's your first attempt qualifier or second attempt qualifier. No one will ever ask this question. It's not important. There are 100 marks. There are 50 questions which you will have to answer. Two marks per question. Essentially speaking, you have 75 minutes to go. You can sit at home and do it. It's not easy in the sense that you will think, oh, it's sit at home and do. Okay, I'll ask somebody else to appear for it. No, it's not possible, because they have got a good system of, you have to put your camera on, you will be identified, and there are quite a good governance mechanism. So please don't think that somebody else will appear for you. That's not intended, and that's not possible also. So don't even attempt, and they will blacklist you, and then independent directorship's gone forever. So having said that, you have to score 60 marks, which means out of 50 questions, you have to get 30 right. And and it's a multiple choice question, and I'll explain to you whatever questions they will ask you. Now, what is it to be done? And I'll explain to you that quickly, as much as possible. I think we lost a lot of time already. The test modules are structured this way. It's a bit-sized modules. Essentially, there are 42 modules which you will need to go through, and I will quickly take you through the 42 modules. My submission is that as you go through the modules, and the modules I submit, that you go to the IICA website, you register yourself with the Indian Institute of Corporate Affairs, Ministry of Corporate Affairs, and Government of India, and they have 42 modules already mentioned. And those 42 modules, you will be able to figure out that after every module, there are some self-assessment questions, and it will automatically tell you that are you able to understand what's happening. So once you attend the self-assessment questions yourself, you will know your learning is good or not. So what are those 42 modules? My submission to you is that it's like the in the CA exam or others, it's a study material. So I would submit to you, don't get into anything else. Don't start reading hundreds and thousands of books and papers. Just go to the IICS site. They have given 42 modules. Each module will take about 55 minutes for you to go through. These modules are PowerPoint presentations with someone in speaking at the background. Someone will speak to you in the background. So even if you don't wish to read, somebody will read it for you. And it takes about 50 minutes to 55 minutes each module. And if you go to each module maybe twice or thrice, I guarantee you, to my mind, given our background, given the background of all the participants, you would definitely qualify, no question about it. So what are the modules? I'll quickly take you through. I wouldn't spend so much time. One module is on incorporation of companies, as you know, how to incorporate a company, formation of company. These are the type of things which they are going to explain to you. Memorandum articles, categories of companies. We all know that. We have studied long times as we have as we went through our journey. The next one is share capital. All about share capital, basically the equity capital, but what type of share capital, what is authorized capital, what is paid-up capital. Again, no brainer. Most of us will know the answer. Then general meetings, how to hold a general meeting, what is an AGM, what is an AGM, what are the essentials of a meeting to be conducted, which is a valid meeting, what is an invalid meeting, how to create minutes of the meeting. So this is all the general meetings, all about AGMs essentially, or extraordinary EGOMs, as you know, extraordinary general meeting. This is what is contained. Accounts of companies. This will be absolutely cakewalk for most of us over here. They will be talking about, of course, of debit credits, no question. They will also be talking about what is NFRA, what is the role of NFRA now, how the financial reporting is, a little bit on CARO 2020, a little bit on that. Debentures and bonds, all of us know about it. This is the debt side of funding. So what type of debentures, what type of bonds, and again, rating of bonds and how the rating of bonds can change, the cost of bonds, concept basically. If you sit in a board, you should be able to understand what is a debenture, what is a bond, what's an equity capital, and so on and so forth. What's acceptance of deposits? Many companies accept deposits and then many of them fail to deposit, refund the deposits. How to accept a deposit? What are the do's and don'ts? What is a deposit? How can you go to the public? Is it a secured? Can it be unsecured? And what are the do's and don'ts for that? Do you need to be rated for issuing a secured, for issuing a public deposit? Then prospectus and allotment of shares. As you know, raising money from the public is an important decision on the board, and therefore sometimes prospectus has to be issued. And then for will the prospectus contain? What are the responsibilities of you and me as a director? Related party transaction. This is a very important one because this is something the board members sometimes forget, that you can't have a related party transaction, which means that the board member.
Sorry, sir, we'll just check and mute. Yeah, go ahead, sir. Sorry.
Okay. A board member cannot have a relationship with, say, a service provider. For instance, it cannot be so that that a consultancy firm provides advice to the company and the board member is an owner or partner in the consultancy firm. Not possible. That's a related party transaction. Audit and auditors. In fact, many of us over on this call are auditors ourselves. So what are the do's and don'ts with auditors? We have to explain what auditors can do, what auditors cannot do. This whole issue of true and fair view of the balance sheet. What are the duties and responsibilities and powers of our auditor? Mergers and acquisition. This is something we as CAs don't study much. Of course, MBA study a lot. Mr. Kannan would know extremely well of the whole issue of M&A so well. Maybe they can acquire us he can acquire us anytime. So having said that, M&A is something which we as financial, Chartered accountants or cost accounting professionals have not spent too much time on it. But however, the IICA, that 1 hour model should give you a fair background as to what is the legal framework of mergers and acquisition, what's the do's and don'ts to be done. And of course, they have talked about a little bit of cross mergers, inter-geography mergers, cross-border mergers, as it says, and how it works. Institution of directors, this is something, essentially speaking, it means that what is the role of directors? What's the role of a woman director? Or who is a resident director? How many number of directorships can you have? How can a director resign? And if he or she resigns, then what happens? So that's what is talked about. Duties of you will be surprised to know, and I have been always surprised that directors who sits on the board, independent director, they don't know what their duties are. They come for a meeting, have a lovely cup of tea and biscuit, maybe a lunch to be followed by, and then they don't even know what the duties are. This particular module forces people who wants to become a director need to know what their duties are. What are they supposed to do? What are the questions they can ask? And the primary thing is, as a duty, an independent director is not an employee, is not on the rolls on a regular basis. So you're not supposed to run the company, yet you are supposed to guide the company. So that's what this model will be talking about. Liabilities of directors in KMP. This is very important because many of us think that why should I become a director? There are too much of liabilities. Actually, it is not, unless you are aware and you partake to a fraud. To my mind, there is no other liability. The Liability in Companies Act is overstated, in my view. But yes, here in this docket and the module, you will be able to know what the liabilities are, and especially what is a corporate liability and what's an individual liability. When does a company becomes liable? When does an independent director become liable himself or herself? Safeguarding directors, very important, that especially for listed companies, what are the safeguards which the directors have? Essentially speaking, you should not be in direct, let's say, knowledge or involvement in any hanky-panky or fraud, as you may be saying. So having said that, there is something called operation and mismanagement. This is very important because there are minority shareholders. You know, an independent director we always talk about an independent director safeguards governance. I think not really. The primary role of an independent director is to safeguard the interests of the minority shareholders. That's the key. You are if it's a listed company, you are bearing on your shoulder the responsibility of the minority shareholders. So therefore, the minority shareholders sometimes feel the majority shareholders are oppressing them and they're mismanaging. And therefore, what happens? This is the module by which you can learn what is oppression and mismanagement, what are the rights and responsibilities of the minority shareholders, and of course, more importantly, as an independent director, what are you supposed to do? So this is the model on that. Penalties and compounding of offenses. As you know now, that Companies Act 2013 does talk about a fair bit of penalties. Sometimes 2,000, 5,000, 20,000, 1 day jail, 2 day jail, cognizable offense, non-cognizable offense. My humble submission to you is, you can read it, you can read this module, but don't spend time on it. Doesn't matter. You will ask me why. Where I'm saying that, see, out of 50 questions you have to pass, you have to get only 30 questions. Now, maybe there'll be 2 or 3 questions on penalties. Even assuming the 2 questions you don't answer, doesn't matter. You still have 48 to qualify. The amount of time which you will have to spend on penalties and compounding is immense. So I suggest, my suggestion, of course, is don't waste too much time on this. Then comes to the SEBI listing, the famous LODR. It used to be clause 49 earlier. There are these, as a listed company, there are certain things which you can do and which should not do. As soon as a meeting takes place, the board meeting takes place, where the results are declared, you have within certain minutes, you have to inform the stock exchange. You know, if there is an information which affects which affects the share price, which could affect the share price, that should be known to everyone, and so on and so forth. So as you know, the listed company, what are the do's and don'ts for a listed company? This is something which you will learn here. Board committees, boards usually have quite a few committees, as you know, the regular ones, the remunerations committee, stakeholders relationships committee, CSR committee. And this module will tell you what the responsibilities of these committees are. And of course, the number one committee is audit committee, what these committees are supposed to be doing, who can form in the committee, how many independent directors, how many whole-time directors can be there in these committees, and so on and so forth. Then come to secretarial audit and compliance. This is, of course, a cakewalk for anybody who is a company secretary. Secretarial audit, appointment of secretaries, removal of secretaries, and so on and so forth. I think if you go through once, maximum twice, you will be able to get a hang of this situation. Actually, on secretarial, there are two papers or two modules, secretarial standard 1 and secretarial standard 2. How to issue a notice, how to maintain the minutes, who can be the chairperson, if the chairman is not decided, should the shareholder who holds a maximum number of shares become a chairperson, and so on and so forth. How to do the voting, is the e-voting has also come nowadays, so that's a new thing which has happened. Board meetings, that's something which you are supposed to be discussing here.
Hello. ये 4320 से 3720 ये लिखा ना आपने 4320 ये तो 18% लगाओ ना तो 4720 आएगा.
I request everyone to keep their mic on mute in case they are not talking. It just distract the speaker.
Thank you, Audit. Now come to the board meetings, how to hold the board meetings, when to hold the board meetings, what constitutes a valid board meeting, so on and so forth. CSR, corporate social responsibility. This is something which is obviously now necessary for listed companies who are profit making. 2% of your profits have to go to CSR activities. How to do that? It became quite stringent, as you know, in the recent past. Today, it has become quite lax. Because of protests from the industry. I think it is inappropriate. CSR must be made responsible. If you are making profit, I think we are all duty bound to contribute to the society who provides us with a profit. But unfortunately, the entrepreneurial community as a whole does not believe the way I believe. But be as it may, how to read a balance sheet. Can you believe that you have to study this? It's a cakewalk for you, isn't it? So it's wonderful. You have to read on how to read a balance sheet. But just imagine a doctor wants to become an independent director. An educational professional, and how difficult it would be for him or her to understand this, how to read a balance sheet. So it is all structured in favor of the finance professional. It's a cakewalk for you, this one. So it's easy, how to read a balance sheet. Then comes to the decoding of financial statements. Again, basically these are ratios and ratio analysis. One, liability side and asset side of the balance sheet. This is somewhere the Caro report is also discussed. And of course, as it stands, I don't think the latest questions have Caro 2020 there, but yeah, the previous versions of Caros are all mentioned there. Professional ethics, yes, this is something which all of us we have been talking about, that what is professional ethics, what is unethical behavior, what should independent directors do, what they cannot do. Due diligence before joining the board. Many of you do have a question, okay, you are now being offered a board membership. Should I join? How do you do a due diligence? That's $1 million question. It is not easy to do a due diligence on a board. I do understand it. You have to do it based on information available in the public domain. But this module, I think it's 50 minutes module, does give you some ideas as to what you perhaps should do to understand whether you should join a board or not. It's a question of due diligence from information available in the public domain. You cannot go to the company and do a due diligence. That's not allowed. That they will not allow it whatsoever. You please don't think I will do a legal due diligence and then into the board. No, that's not going to happen. That's absolutely ruled out whatsoever. Then comes to, okay, due diligence before joining the board. Exemplary board. Exemplary board basically gives examples as to what's a great board. How does a good board behave? Again, good knowledge to have. Once you become a director, it's nice to know that how to conduct a good board, and so-called the dream board. Is Tata Sons board a dream board? Is Aditya Birla board a dream board? So, or Mahindra board a dream board? Whatever, we can argue till the cows go home, but this is a model which talks about what's a dream board. Board effectiveness and culture. This is where it talks about what's the board culture, what's the impact between the human beings inside, how can you have informal board meetings, how important informal board meetings could be different from a formal board meetings, and so on and so forth. Building a resilient company's board role. Again, essentially speaking, this model talks about risk management. What's a risk management? What's enterprise risk management? What's a risk appetite? What should you do when the board is taking too much of risk? As an independent director, can you do something about it? And this is what this one will be talking about. Governance of committees. Again, the board committees, there are so many board committees we talked about. How do you govern them? What are the basic tenets behind them? What are the limitations of board committees? Board committees, just because there's a board committee, you don't have full rights and responsibilities. There are only partial, which we can do. And that's what this module will be talking about. Sometimes there are some boards called audacious board. Audacious board means board which takes too much of very aggressive boards. And if there is an aggressive board you are sitting on, what do you do? And it's an example of how an audacious board can work. Managing CSR and engaging stakeholders. It is nothing else but a subset of CSR itself. CSR is a nice thing to say, but many of the CSR are actually not CSR. They do something which the company themselves are interested in. Unfortunately, the CSR has not gone the way it should have gone. But okay, this model will be talking about an ideal CSR environment. Managing through financial ratios. You, the CAs and the finance professionals here on this call, it's an absolute cakewalk for you. What are the ratios? There would be questions asked on this. There will be maybe some cases, small little cases, and they will say, okay, do you think the I'm saying debt to EBITDA ratio or debt coverage ratio, let's say 5:1. Is it a good ratio or a bad ratio? So that sort of situation. So I would request, I know all of you are kings and queens of ratios, but it would be nice to go through this model and perhaps rejig your mind as to what the ratios were to be interpreted. Board evaluation, as you know now, there is a rule under Companies Act 2013. The boards need to be evaluated. Board evaluation is not taken seriously in India by most companies. Abroad, it has become let's say, a structured professional exercise. Board evaluation, India, unfortunately, it is not. But still, there are board evaluation mentioned in the Companies Act, how to evaluate the board, who evaluates whom, can they evaluate themselves, and so on and so forth. How to evaluate the CEO, the chairperson, is something which you will learn over here. Evaluation of independent directors. Again, independent directors will have to be evaluated. Is an independent director contributing? Or does an independent director know what he or she is talking about? So this is what you will hear here. Now, having said all that, as I told you, there are 42 modules. And now there are 7 of them. There are 7 case studies. These case studies are of frauds, the global frauds which have taken place. WorldCom fraud, way back, as you know, long time back, 20 years before, there was a huge fraud called the World Bank WorldCom fraud. There was this Enron fraud. These are all accounting jugglery fraud. WorldCom, Enron, these are all accounting jugglery. Volkswagen, VW, as it's called in German, is not an accounting fraud. It's a mechanical fraud, a fraud constructed by the engineers to hide the emission problem of the organization. It's a different fraud. What does the board do then? And then there is Olympus. Olympus, many of you may not have heard this fraud. It's a Japanese company. It's a camera company where the CEO, after having joined, within 3 months, he found out there's a multi-billion-dollar fraud going. Then what does the CEO do? And in fact, within 6 months, he went and complained, and then rest is history. It's a nice case study to understand. Satyam, all of us know, we have grown on that. Again, typical accounting fraud, where the owner himself where the auditors did not state that there is a fraud going on. The owner squeaked, he confessed, and again, the rest is history. Essentially speaking, the Companies Act 2013 is an outcome of Satyam fraud, to cut the long story short. So that's what happened. As you know, the NFRA, the National Financial Reporting Authority, is the outcome of the Nirav Modi fraud, and Companies Act 2013 is an outcome of the Satyam fraud. So these are the two milestone frauds, corporate frauds. Maybe it's good to know by all of you who are on the call, just to understand what happened in these cases. Maruti Suzuki is a different type of fraud. Perhaps you remember that the general manager was murdered inside the factory by the employees, and it's more or less it's a case study where HR, the company handled the employees inappropriately. A company like Maruti Suzuki Stature. It's good to understand what went wrong. Hydro One is another. It's a Canadian case study. It's a case study where the company was supplying almost 100% of the electricity requirement of Canada, especially the Toronto city. And as you know, Canada goes into minus 30, minus 40 degrees temperature in the night, and they were all dependent upon coal-based. And they started thinking that I'm subtracting value from the nature, and therefore we should change the way the input item. Either we should go to the atomic, or we need to go to oil or to hydro. And then they were thinking that, how do I make this changeover? So again, it's not a fraud, but it's a case study as to how a board can think that to do a 360 degrees turnaround of an organization, which is where the people in the city are 100% dependent upon this company's output. Again, a wonderful case study to know. Okay, so that's the 42. Essentially speaking, there are 35 plus 7. 35 are all the generic ones. The 35 includes one on penalty, which I think you should go a little slow on. And there are 7 case studies on frauds and related topics. My submission, maybe you need not spend too much time on the 7. Good to know. Even if there are 3-4 questions which are coming from the 7, even if you choose to ignore, doesn't matter. 35 minus 1, which is on penalty, 34. 34 into 1 hour each is 34 hours. 34 into 2. So if you go through twice in 68 hours, so essentially in 5 days, you should be able to qualify. So that's in short is what I think you can do. So get cracking from tomorrow, and hopefully by today is Saturday, next Saturday, you are all qualified independent directors. Now, it is not difficult. Don't give it up. It's not difficult. So some hints I have, as I said already, there are 42 modules. There are dummy assessment tests. It will help you to go through. Please go to the IICI website. Don't do anything else. That's good enough. I assure you that's good enough. So I think what you should do is, once you have gone through the 42 modules, you should apply for appearing for the test. So moment you apply, they will give you, the IICI will give you an automatic date, which may come 3 to 7 days time. And then on that time and date, please appear for the exam, for the test. You may qualify, you may not qualify. If it doesn't qualify, you actually, you know that what are your weaknesses. It is almost like a test, self-assessment test, where you may or may not, doesn't matter. If you don't qualify, you know where the weaknesses are, and you get the weaknesses sorted out, and maybe you can appear for the next week. So to my mind, in next 2 to 3 weeks time, everyone on this call should be an independent director qualified. Do people really give up? You know, a lot of stories go around. People are resigning from independent directorship. It's not good. I don't think so. I think people are retiring. Just a quick example. This is from Economic Times in January 2020. Again, I think the next data will come January 20. It should come in January 2021. That 168 persons resigned from directorship. Out of that, almost half of them, let's say 55, retired. They came into the retirement superannuation age, and 36 of them said, I'm preoccupation. So most of these people who retire or resign, I think, do it because of personal compulsion, and I don't think they feel that the responsibilities are very onerous. It is very difficult to to keep it on their shoulder, and therefore they retire or resign. I don't think so. So having said that, I think demand for independent directors are bound to take place. As I told you, people have to now qualify for independent directorship. A lot of vacant positions, I think, will come up from this month onwards. I know listed company secretaries have started calling the independent director, sir, madam, have you qualified? Have you passed your ID? No. Then what? Come 31st March, more or less, they have to resign. Because come April 2021, every director has to fill up a self-assessment, has to fill up their what is called, their undertaking or qualification, where they have to say, are they qualified or not? They can't say I'm qualified. So if you're disqualified, you cannot continue to be an independent director in a listed company. There is no penalty for sure, but it's a disastrous governance. To my mind, you will see come April, May, a lot of vacancies coming up. In fact, I have already heard that a lot of women are getting calls from various companies of being able to become an independent director. So ladies and gentlemen, please qualify for the test. That's important. And well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for listening to me. If I can be of any help, I'll be always happy to do so. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Robin. That was really good information. In fact, most of us will look forward to, at least not in next 1 week, maybe in this year, and maybe before the year end, that we qualify for this certification and qualify for that. One question I have, like you specified something on the woman director, role of woman director. Is it something specifically called out?
Should I stop sharing? Is it easier for us to then discuss?
Yeah, maybe we keep it for a minute so that people in case they want to take a note of your email ID, they can connect it.
Aditya, what was your question on woman director?
So basically, when we talk about woman director, so like there's some specific role which has been defined that.
No, woman director is same as a man director.
Okay.
So there is no difference between a woman director, except for the fact that every board must have one woman director. It is just the equality being brought into the picture in governance, because 50% of the world is women. And why shouldn't they have 50% representation in the boards also? We, the men, have prevented that from happening. Now the government is forcing us, enough is enough, you must have one at least. So no, there is no different role. They have the same voting power, they have the same rights and the same responsibilities.
Yeah, that was good.
Okay, then after this, I'm asking you to. First, you mentioned about YouTube 4,000.
Manoj,
Manoj,
do you have any question?
Yes. A wonderful presentation. And Aditya, I'm glad you raised the issue of women directors. They add to diversity on the board. That is the prime objective. And also softer skills and thinking. That's very important. It's a mix of intellectual and emotional. Both the sides are very, very important. And Pramod Agarwal, CFO, has joined us. Yogesh Satpute has also joined us. I would request now Yogesh Satpute to please share a few words. Then Pramod, you share a few words. Then we'll get to the open house. Yogesh?
I'm stopping to share. That's easier, I suppose.
Yeah, that will be great. Yeah.
Am I audible?
Yeah, Yogesh, we can hear you. Can you switch on your video so that we can see you? That will be helpful for people to get connected with you.
I'm not sure. Am I audible now?
Yeah, you are audible.
So good morning to all. I just want to say a few words about Robin sir, because I read his book 6-7 months ago, which was Who Blunders and How. In the meantime, I wrote a small book review also, which I'll be sharing soon. But I just have a very good applaud for this book. And although Mr. Robin has given a lot of case studies during this presentation, but what I can tell, there are more than 100 case studies in the book itself. And couple of things which are very kind of driving me. I can just tell that he calls merger and acquisition as a mug's game. Means I'll be very happy to learn a couple of things from him. And if he spare additional 2 minutes with us on this, it will be much helpful. So a couple of things, like why he called merger and acquisition as a mug's game, then business model as a mangled, then maybe a dead rat, or even innovation he called as a skidding. So many things are there in a book. I'll request others also to read this book, but in the meantime, I'll just request Robin sir to speak something about it.
Okay, I think Yogesh, you talked about my saying that M&A is a mugs game, M-U-G-S, mugs game. Mugs game is a game which is played where the chance of success is lower than what you believe it is actually to be. The real truth is the historical evidence shows, and it's not my data, it is Harvard Business School data, that 70% of M&As don't work, 70.
So 30% is the only success rate, you mean?
30% is success rate, yes. Now the question here is, why does M&As don't work? Let's cut the crap and talk about, okay, why does it work? And how can it work? Why it does not work, let me tell you. In short, whenever a merger or acquisition takes place, and I have been part of more than 15 acquisitions, either in India and globally, the acquirer is always trying to acquire somebody with the hope that mere ko kuch milega, I will get something. Let me give you an example. Why do you think there is a fight, or there are often fights at homes within the mother-in-law and the daughter-in-law? Why should there be a fight? The daughter-in-law, that means the bahu, loves the same man as the mother-in-law is loving. Mother-in-law is loving the same man who the bahu is also loving. If the objective is the same, why should the daughter-in-law and mother-in-law fight? The reason behind that is when a daughter-in-law comes home, when the mother-in-law thinks that I will give all the love to this new daughter, I have got my new daughter. Just think how the relationship will work, because the daughter will think I have got a new mother. Similarly, the daughter also has to think that now let me think this is a new mother. If this thinking is reversed, that the mother-in-law is thinking, "Are ghar pe bahu aa gaya, sab kaam wo karega." She will do all the work. Jhara, pocha, sab kuch. So therefore, in the second objective, the mother-in-law saying that how can I take something from this new bahu? In the first objective was, how can I give something to the new bahu? The moment you think of giving, the relationship works. The moment you think of taking, the relationship does not work. M&A 70%, why it does not work is that the acquiring company is thinking how I can take the technology, how can I take their balance sheet, how can I take their cash, how can I take that their distribution muscle power, how can I take their brand name? They're thinking of taking. Think if I can think of giving. Let me give you a great example of a small, have you gone to, nowadays we don't go to restaurants, but even 9 months, 10 months back, when you went to a restaurant a good restaurant will supply you a nice little bottled water called Himalayan bottled water. Have you heard of Himalayan bottled water, Tata Beverages?
Yes.
This Himalayan bottled water was being bottled by a very small MSME, not even SME, MSME, that micro company, MSME in the foothills of Himalayas, and they were sick, perennially sick. Tata's thought that this is a great opportunity. This company is bottling water at the foothills of Himalayas. It's a water with a lot of minerals and lovely water. Why don't I give? Please think, Tata's thought, why don't I give them my distribution muscle power? Tata's did not think, how do I take that technology of that company? They thought, how can I give my muscle power? And the rest is history. Today, Tata's have the best mineral water distribution, mineral water brand in their hand, in spite of Bisleris, which is a generic name. Himalaya has become a huge change in the Indian scenario, because it had the give approach and not the take approach. So, my dear friends, M&As is a mugs game because they always follow the take approach. Reverse it to give approach, it will work.
Thank you, sir. We'll look to have you on a detailed round about this book, because there are many chapters, and maybe be it a family business, be it a kind of innovation, fox paws of PR. So maybe it should be a different long session with you. But sir,
Wonderful.
apart from this, can you quote any other case study which you liked out of this book and which you want us to know as a mandatory lesson?
Yogesh, you yourself mentioned that debt, DEBT, is a death trap, DEATH. Debt is a death trap. Have you noticed why do companies go bankrupt? If you ask a question, most of us are chartered accountants here, and there are only two reasons, there could be thousands of reasons in a management book, but in view, there are only two reasons why a company goes bankrupt. That means a company goes belly up. One, primary, is fraud. They committed fraud, ran away with the money, they got the bank money or whoever shareholders money and utilized somewhere else. This is what happened to Mr. Kingfisher. He did not put the money into the airlines, but he took the money and invested outside in whatever he wanted to do. He did, which is essentially called money laundering. The second reason is they take more debt, DBT. They borrow more than what they can chew. And companies after companies, be it SR Steel, be it Bhushan Steel, be it the great brand, these airport brands, Elanco, the huge engineering company. You go company after company, Alok Industries, huge company, huge businesses. Today it is successful under Reliance, but yesterday it was not because they took more debt than what they can chew. And this is a classical example of entrepreneurs thinking, abhi paisa le lete, baad mein dekha jayega. Baad mein kuch dekha nahi jata hai. Nothing happens tomorrow unless you are able to plan the cash flows appropriately tomorrow. And we'll always have to plan that things may go wrong. If things go wrong, how am I going to service my debt? So to my mind, please be wary of, and we are talking of governance, we are talking about independent directors today, debt and frauds are the two things which independent directors and directors must be very, very careful of when you're sitting in the board position.
Thanks, Robin. I would now request Pramod Agarwal. He has joined us. Pramod?
Yeah, Manoj.
Yeah, please share a few words about yourself and also on the topic of board meetings and participation and what is the expectation of the board members.
I was late in joining. Sorry for that. But I've seen few of the slides of Robin. It was amazing and it was very clearly explained. I am also a qualified independent director. So I can vouch what Robin was saying, that it is not tough. We all know about Companies Act and the practical approach of that. The questions are completely a practical approach, nothing else. So each and every person can go and register yourself and then sit for an exam. If you are not participating in the board and all, anybody who has done the board preparation, so preparing the minutes of the meeting or before the meeting, preparing agenda and all, we all know all those things. So for them, it will be a cakewalk. But yes, what Robin said is most important thing we have to see. Passing independent directors exam is not a tough thing, but yes, the role of independent director day by day is increasing, and independent directors' responsibilities and the government putting corporate governance pressure on them, they are also becoming more and more participating in the company's matter. So I attend board meetings from last 10 years. So in that, I have seen that how the earlier independent directors used to come, they used to ask few questions and go. But now I'm seeing they are getting themselves involved in day-to-day things. I keep on getting calls almost every week from one or two my independent directors on certain matters. They ask me, Pramod, how this is going on. This was internal audit reports has been considered very, very, very seriously by them because they are answerable. All credit ratings, we all know that all these credit ratings companies, as per the new SEBI circular, they are supposed to have one meeting with the audit committee members. So that is, so entire independent directors are subject to that, and they get the questions from the credit rating and they have to answer it. Related party transactions, the entire focus on corporate governance is on related party transactions. They are also really the very important part, and independent directors are quite vigilant about the related party transactions. So these are the things. Even if now all independent directors are pushing the boards management to get the certification before getting into an related party transactions in terms of arm's length pricing and all. So those are the things which independent directors are very vigilant, and the roles are getting in very expanded. So they have been made more responsible and more categorically answerable to certain things which are supposed to be taken care by themselves. So that is what Robin has said is right, and I completely agree with him that the from 1st April, when they have to give the qualification type of thing declarations, there definitely many of the positions will be get vacant, and definitely people will get into profiles of the people who are registered and qualified from the IICA. So that is something which I believe. Yes, here one caveat is there. Those who have already have experience of board for 10 years or more, I think they can apply for an exemption and they will get honorary membership also. That is something which I think just wanted to share with everybody. So those who are, because we have quite a senior people here also. So those who have already attended the board meetings and board experience of 10 years or more, if they can prove it, it's automatically they will get the membership of that by paying the membership fees and all.
Very good, Pramod. I would come back to you, particularly on the good, bad, and ugly. I request Sandeep, he's with us here now. If you can, Sandeep. Sandeep has been CEO and CFO of CLSA, UBS, and ABN AMRO, and also has experience on attending board meetings of Aditya Birla Capital Advisors, and also an unlisted company in the catering space. Sandeep?
Sandeep, sir, you have to unmute.
Hi, thank you, Manoj. I would like to actually share my experiences. In fact, with MNCs, as you know, you can call Aditya Birla also an MNC. The experiences which I had when I was with ABN AMRO, CLSA, and UBS, we used to actually send across a monthly report to our regional offices, and they were very much like what we actually had to prepare for a board meeting. You know, it was like a report where whether all the compliances have taken place or not. So that's one of the things which I learned during my previous career, I would say. The second point which I wanted to just highlight, and that is, you know, it's all good to be you know, become an independent director, but what I feel, if uh, a person, you know, if the promoter of the company himself is the chairman or the managing director, what really happens with the independent director is they become yes men, and that is something which you know, has to be guarded, and should not be, you know, practiced. I think even if you are an independent director, you should speak out, because that's a very important role for you. That's the second point. And the third point which I wanted to actually make out, and this is a learning again from Aditya Birla, because this is the most important point, I would say, because the governance practices in Aditya Birla are great. One of the things which we did was we always used to have committee meetings, and committee meetings are as important as you know, having the independent directors, because they are your ears and eyes for the institution. So when that happens, that is the most important thing. One is when you then turn out those reports to the independent directors or the audit committee, the independent directors should actually go through all of these, um, committee meetings, the minutes, if they are actually part of the agenda papers for the board meeting, and if there are any points which come in, those need to be brought in, and that is very, very important. So one more thing which was there is, as a CFO for Aditya Birla Capital Advisors, I was asked to sign for all the compliances which were there related to the company. These meant all the laws, all the regulations, and whether internal control was in place, plus whether all the accounting records and governance practices have been followed or not. So that needed to be provided to the board of directors as a CFO. So the independent directors would actually check out whether or not we have signed it. So that's also very, very important. That's the thing which I wanted to share. Thanks.
Thanks, Sandeep. I would come to Mr. Kannan now. Mr. Kannan? Yeah. I would request you to share a few thoughts. You have wide experience with ICICI Bank as a director, and you have had a lot of functional areas, and you have experience with Hinduja Groups as looking at performances of various companies, and also attended board meetings of very large companies in the listed space. So please share a few experiences and life stories.
I was not a director in ICICI Bank, but of course, when I was in Hinduja Group, I attended a few board meetings, not as a director. But if you ask me, in fact, at Hinduja Group, we have a corporate center. In fact, now what has happened, if you see SEBI, one of the board of director duties which SEBI has emphasized today is that board has to focus on strategy, board has to focus on risk management, and especially after this COVID and all, SEBI is also asking companies to look at cyber risk in a big way. So now it has been mandated to the board. One of the things which you would find when I was ICICI Bank also, we see some of the assisted companies. Most of the listed companies, they did not have corporate planning or corporate strategy as a function. It was not there. But now SEBI has mandated that if you see the responsibilities of the board, one of the major responsibility of the board today is that companies have to prepare a plan and it has to be approved by the board. Usually it is prepared by the management. Of course, it's debated at the company level. So when I joined Hinduja Group almost 27 years back, I introduced for the first time the concept of this corporate plan in the group as a group. And also we held all the CEO meetings for the first time. We asked every company to prepare a 5-year plan. Of course, when you prepare the plan, you also come to know what are the different scenarios, what are risks involved, what are assumptions you make. And not only we stopped with that, if you look at corporate governance, as per SEBI, we require to report only quarterly performance. But if you ask me if a company wants to have a good corporate performance, we have people from Aditya Birla Group here. This Birla Group, for the 100 years, they had a system called Patta system, where they used to monitor the performance of a company on a daily basis. So they take 3-4 parameters of a company, a location, even when there was no fax and all, they used to exchange it through telephone. So this system they introduced. But if you see after 2008, what has happened after the crisis, companies like General Electric, where we talk about they are the best example for corporate strategy and all, these people introduced a daily reporting system. A company like L&T, where chairman used to spend 2 hours daily with the 9 large SBUs. So what we have done, if you see, now SEBI has mandated that companies have to start looking at the corporate plan, companies have to start looking at risk management. Now this system is going to be formalized. It's not applicable to all companies now, but slowly they will mandate that every listed company should have all this. Because some of these companies, they don't have the ability to prepare these plans. If you ask me, one of the things when you are lending money or when we are managing the Nuja group also, we used to have monthly review also. But I said quarter is not enough. If you're going to see a quarterly performance, I know Birla Group has got a monthly performance. I know RPG Group has got, Piramal Group they have got. So, so you have a detailed monthly review with the people. So that gives you an idea about the performance as well as the where you have gone away from the budget and what is the course correction you can take. So this is what as a corporate center, the role of a corporate center, if you have many units, I don't think every group in India, when they have 7-8 companies, they have full-fledged corporate center which focuses on these aspects. Of course, now SEBI has mandated each listed company should do, but even large corporates, of course, it is there in large groups like RPG, Piramal Group, Reliance Group, Tata Group and all. But some of the new emerging large conglomerates, they need to have this system. That's what I wanted to share. And especially the monthly review is very, very important. At the end of the today, computer systems are available. So what actually you should close the books of accounts by the end of the month. That's one of the major things when you talk about this corporate governance. So what happens if you don't close the books by the end of the month? Then the sales people go on booking sales till the 7th or 8th of next month, and that gets added to the numbers. But once you start doing that, maybe first 1 or 2 months you have that negative growth, but after that it becomes a system. So these are all some of the things which have to be focused. And of course, when you talk about independent directors, the SEBI expects these people to come with this kind of outlook and say that they'll be able to contribute from this point of view. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kannan. In fact, I would like to share as a part of funds management team from 1992 onwards, I interacted with over 1,000 management and including large listed companies, chairmen and directors like Hindustan Lever, Tata's, L&T, and leading wealth creators. And the focus was on substance over form. In fact, in 2000 year, I was requested to share a research paper along with other eminent people who have worked on corporate governance like Mr. Edwin Cadbury, Mr. Narayan Vagol, Mr. Narayan Murthy, right from those days. In fact, later the Komaramangalam Birla committee was appointed. Then they focused on whether rules are important or substance is important. Actually, when you look at the substance, beyond just the tick mark compliances, they are very, very important. How the company approaches all the stakeholders, whether it is the promoters, whether it is the institutional investors, whether it is the bankers, whether it is the domestic investors, whether it is the employees, whether it is the government. The values are important, and ultimately wealth creation is very important from an overall angle. And now we have made lots of progress since the last 30 years, and lots of progress needs to be done also. We have seen lots of defaults, lots of IBC cases. So some companies have created wealth, some have failed. There is a good, there is a bad, there is a ugly. I would now request Mr. Hemant Mehta. You are there with us?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, please share in very briefly in 2 minutes about your experiences and the knowledge about companies in IBC. There have been large companies also which have been taken over by Tata Group, Jindal. And just a broad overview in 2 minutes about whether the companies have succeeded and to what extent they have failed in terms of corporate governance issues. Then I would request Nipun Mehta, please join us and share your few thoughts on corporate sector, corporate governance.
Yeah. Basically, I'm apart from being an independent director in few companies, I'm also insolvency professional. So, running already CRP process in 2 or 3 companies, one of which is a listed company. So, corporate governance is always an issue with the companies which are under IBC usually. And as Mr. Even earlier speaker also said that that is the main root cause of the company being in trouble. So I think the main collapse of all the corporate governance, even the companies which are under IBC are not even prepared to have the audited accounts of last 4 or 5 years also. And there are so many issues which are involved with IBC companies. So it's totally a failure, complete failure of.
Hemant, can you be a little louder, please?
Yeah, it's a complete failure. Am I audible now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or also, if you can put your video on.
Yeah, it's a complete failure of entire system as a whole. So it's totally, I think, anything against which is, corporate governance and everything. So then only the companies are dragged into IBC. Majority of companies are having all the family-owned business, and they are already been in trouble either because of the mismanagement or because of the the heavy tax which they have taken. So, due to that, there is a complete collapse of the corporate governance structure as a whole in the companies which are under IBC. There are no AGMs, nothing is happening once the company is tagged into IBC. Even the insolvency professionals are finding it is very difficult to conduct AGM also and normal meetings. So these are the issues which are involved with the companies who are already tagged into IBC, totally on the other mode of, non-governance mode, I can say. So these are the issues involved in that.
Thank you, Hemant. I would request now Mr. Nipun Mehta, veteran in the financial sector and also a director on the board of a company which is planning an IPO. Nipun, please share a few thoughts on how CAs can add value to the corporate and also ensure good governance.
So, Manoj, having been on a few boards, I have observed that you will have listed, and there are, we must all remember that there are different norms that are there for listed companies in terms of meetings, results, regulations that they need to follow. They're far stricter for listed companies. They're a little less strict as far as unlisted companies are concerned. In terms of declaration of results, how frequently results should be announced, a lot of the legal aspects as well. So, from what I've observed, there are a lot of listed companies which typically do not follow a lot of these regulations in true spirit. Board meetings are, and a lot of these, in India, you have several promoter-driven companies that are there, which are listed. And you will typically have board meetings which are held in a rush or where things are not discussed properly. At the same time, you will also have within the unlisted space companies which follow typically every single regulation that Companies Act lays down, even for listed companies. So we all know there are different rules laid down by the regulator for the large companies, for companies that are in the top 500, and the rest of the companies and the unlisted companies as well separately. From what I've observed, depending on the corporate governance internally followed by the promoters or by the company or by the management, there's even within the unlisted space, there are companies which follow a huge amount of transparency, all regulations as far as listed company, top 500 corporate governance standards that are laid down by SEBI, even those are followed by some of these unlisted companies. So as an independent director, I think one probably needs to encourage some of those practices in order to ensure that there is better corporate governance, there is better transparency that management lays down, that companies laid down. It's in not just the interest of the independent director himself or herself, but also it lays down better corporate governance guidelines for the company in case it grows in size or in case it's planning for an IPO. So that's as far as both improved or better corporate governance and both laying down better standards as far as independent directors are concerned. I think the other thing which I would want to encourage an independent director to do, beside, of course, I think Mr. Kannan made a very important and good point on monthly reviews that are there, that are often done by companies. I think that to a degree reduces a fair amount of malpractices that could potentially go on and or increases not just responsibility, but also increases transparency, enhances risk management as far as companies are concerned, as far as boards are concerned. But a lot of these practices, large companies would typically follow. This is more an observation or reference to mid-sized companies that could be there, which sometimes do not follow a lot of these practices, is to constantly have in a way, a review mechanism of not just all the regulatory requirements or compliances that the company needs to follow, but also business related compliances that are there. So there are there's of course a secretarial audit that can happen. There are other forms of audit that can happen which will ensure that a lot of these compliances are followed. But from a business point of view, to have say a 3-year or 5-year business plan on a rolling basis and reviewing that constantly, let's say on a half-year basis, is something that can throw up a lot of flags, can also ensure that there is better strategic thinking at the board level in terms of any course correction that the company might need to do, whether there have been any significant variances. A lot of the at least quarterly reviews would typically throw out any major variances that happened, that could have happened in terms of revenues, profitability, margins, revenues from specific particular geographies, product-wise variances that could be there. So a lot of that gets thrown up. But when one looks at it from a longer-term point of view in terms of the growth of a company or the profitability of a company or the fundraising requirements of a company, probably a longer review or a longer business plan is something that would typically, most large companies do follow this, but if one is an independent director of maybe a mid-sized company, a lot of these could help have a discussion at the board level and could help the company in terms of planning on fundraising, planning on how to raise debt, or planning on how to raise equity, ensuring that all the stakeholders are well protected, and at the same time ensuring that one is creating all-rounder stakeholder wealth typically for the company. So some broad observations, I think, in terms of how independent directors can contribute in terms of better corporate governance as well as improved strategy as far as company board is concerned.
Thank you very much, Nipun. I would like to share a few examples of good companies like Hindustan Lever, Infosys, HDFC Bank, HDFC, and wonderful companies which have set benchmarks for good corporate governance. There are quite a few more, but now I would like to come to Mr. Kannan first and then to Mr. Robin Banerjee whistleblower issues are very, very important from corporate governance angle, and also to ensure that there is a trust of all stakeholders. A few good examples which come to me are of Infosys. There were whistleblower issues. In ICICI Bank, there were whistleblower issues. These issues have been happening regularly in many companies. Would like to have thoughts from Mr. Kannan first on whistleblower issues, and then from Mr. Robin Banerjee on whistleblower issues with live examples and your observations on each of them.
Yeah, like Mr. Nipun Mehta said, most of the leading companies in India are family based. So the concept of the related party transaction itself came under SEBI's review only when they found that a lot of companies from the same family doing business with the company and associates. And also, especially after that 2000 crisis, which Mr. Robin Banerjee talked about in US, after which Sarbanes-Oxley Act came, where they made CEO and CFO responsible for anything happening within the company. They made it very, very stringent in US when they brought the 2002 Act. So this whistleblower as a mechanism, which as we are all aware, we say that a public limited company doesn't belong to a promoter, it belongs to all the shareholders. So the concept is that even if there is a little amount of profit being taken, either by people who are within the management or who are promoters, then it is going to reduce the profitability of the company, as well as it will not be available to the other stakeholders who are working with the company, shareholders. So with this in view, especially after all these corporate scandals, and as Mr. Banerjee pointed out, there are only two ways a company can go down. Of course, third one is the economy. One is by fraud and second is by debt. And third is, of course, the whole economy is doing very badly. So when you talk about this whistleblower policy, this was brought with a view. So it's in a very large corporation. It is literally impossible for a person sitting at the top to understand what is going on at the field level. That is one. And second, of course, today SEBI has made it mandatory that directors will be held responsible. So that is where the role of internal audit committee also comes in a way to help the board of directors to understand what is going on. So one basic so if you talk about whistleblower, this is a mechanism by which even if something happens in any nook and corner of the company, it will have a bearing on corporate's performance. As I said, it is literally impossible even for an internal auditor to find out, even an auditor to find out. It could be even for a manager to find out. So this is the only mechanism by which, where it is happening, where somebody is there, if he is able to bring to the notice of the, of course, authority within the company, then to the audit committee. And even if it doesn't happen, then they go to SEBI. So that kind of mechanism has been brought. This has come especially after all this, what we are seeing is corporate frauds happening. That is the history behind bringing this whistleblower policy that we have seen with some of the large companies, even like Infosys and all, people blew the whistle. Now we are seeing a very well grown, very well managed company like UPL is also being brought under this. So this is going to make corporate governance more robust. I think these are my views. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kannan. I am glad you have suggested a corporate governance and corporate strategy series as a part of think tank webinar for the benefit of all stakeholders. That's wonderful. Robin, I would like you to share a few thoughts on whistleblower and with live examples of recent cases.
I feel that the recent episodes are very recent. I think for some time now, the majority source of frauds coming into light is the result of whistleblowers. Take the PMC bank fraud, whistleblower. PNB bank fraud, whistleblower. ICICI bank issue, whistleblower. ILFS going bankrupt, whistleblower. Tell me any instance of recent bankruptcy or a large fraud being declared, a whistleblower was not involved. In fact, it is a bad news for all of us on this call. We, the chartered accountants, did not find the frauds, or did not, maybe we knew about it, but did not do our bit to bring it in the public domain. It had to be somebody else who had to write a letter, send an email, make a phone call, and I'm quite sure every effort was made also to hide it, say, no, it is not correct. Think of what's happening to UPL just now, what was mentioned by Kannan, whistleblower. And they said, no, now the directors or the ownership says, no, nothing doing. I've not done anything wrong. Nobody owns up for sure. The first reaction is everything's fine. And therefore, whistleblower, to my mind, is the edifice on which corporate governance is standing. Unfortunate truth. It is you and me, the auditors, the CA community, the finance professionals, should have been the first line of defense or disclosure. But there is a problem. Can the auditor disclose what happens to the audit fees? Can the CFO disclose what happens to his job? So it's easier said than done, but yes, whistleblower has now become very important. Whistleblower is stronger in the Western world, or I would say developed world, than India. Why? Because in the Indian ecosystem, the whistleblowers are not protected. They are then shown and treated as an outcast of the society. How did the Ranbaxy fraud come into existence? The biggest and the worst fraud ever, to my mind, conducted. What was the Ranbaxy fraud? Second largest pharma company in the world. So in India, 2003, 2004, 2005, they were the second largest pharma company in India. Largest exporter from India of pharmaceutical products. What does pharmaceutical product means? Medicines. Medicines to cure someone. And what was the fraud? They never produced medicines. They didn't export products which had medicinal properties. They were selling and exporting placebos. Now, can you imagine that a heart disease person who takes a medicine thinking my heart will be okay, he was actually, or she was not taking medicine. He or she was taking a placebo. What disaster, what shameful activity on a pharmaceutical company can take place. Who disclosed it? Not the auditors, not the CFO, not the finance fraternity. There is one gentleman called Mr. Dinesh Thakur. Dinesh Thakur joined the company in 2003 as an R&D head. In 6 months' time, he realized something has gone wrong. Something is amiss. He was very unhappy with the situation that, "Acha nahi lag raha hai, Ranbaxy. Does the product really work?" He was trying to figure out, and he's R&D. He was not the R&D head, but he was a director R&D reporting to, I think, the board member R&D. So he was the second in command, expat Indian in Gurgaon head office of Ranbaxy. In 2004, beginning, this Dinesh Thakur had a small child, 3 years old, and he suffered from ear pain, very ear infection. So he goes to a doctor, he goes to a pediatrician and asks the pediatrician, it's a lady pediatrician, and shows the child. And the doctor immediately writes down a prescription and says, "Ye dawai usko de do. Please give the dawai to him." I don't know whether you're aware how the pharma companies mostly in India works. Ranbaxy was no different. They were making generic equivalent, kisko bolte bioequivalents. Medicines which has expired its patent, they would copy in India in a generic term. As you know, India has process patent, no product patent. Sorry, India has product patent, but no process patent. So you could manufacture medicines in India by altering the process. So Dinesh Thakur was a R&D expert of Ranbaxy. So he said, the doctor has given a medicine, but iska bioequivalence I have it in my office. I'm the R&D head. I have my bioequivalence. So he went to his office, picked up the bioequivalence, applied to his son, little son, 3-year-old. And for 2 days, the fever wouldn't come down. He suspected something's wrong. He runs back to the doctor. Fortunately, the doctor was very intelligent. She asked the question that, what medicine did you give him? He said, my company makes so-and-so, I'm Ranbaxy. No, don't give all this bioequivalence. Please give him the Glaxo, GHK medicine. GlaxoSmithKline medicine. So she wrote down the brand name and the manufacturer said, now go and apply, give that medicine to him. So he, on the way back, he bought the GHK medicine and he gave it to his son. And the son's fever came down within 4 hours, which was not happening for 2 days. And immediately realized the gravity of the problem. He realized the Ranbaxy product doesn't work. It's not a medicine at all. And the rest became history. He complained to FDA in 2005. He was a whistleblower. He was sacked from the company. He was then given physical threats by the Ranbaxy owners. He then went to a lawyer who provided him with physical weapon guards. He moved to USA, couldn't be in India anymore. He had to save his family first. He had bodyguards. And in 2012, it was proven what Dinesh Thakur was saying was right. And Ranbaxy said, yes, this is what we did, and paid a $500 million fine, which Mr. Malvinder and Shivinder Singh could not pay. And that's why they have become bankrupt. And also they are behind jail. This is, ladies and gentlemen, the story of whistleblowers.
Very good. We have a lot of participants who have senior management positions in top companies and also who have experience in with audit committees. In fact, I would like any participant or people who have experience with audit committees to share any issues which the panel would love to take it up. Any participant who has experience in preparing inputs for audit committees or interacting with audit committees, welcome. We have a lot of talent here. We have panels who have experience as chairman of audit committees, as member of audit committees. There are lots of good observations which are coming up. Lovely questions. Let's have a round on audit committee.
Yeah, if you members really speak, say, Mr. Pradeep Parikh, would you like to share something?
After that, Anupam, you can share your experience also in interacting with audit committees and boards.
Yeah.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Hello.
Yes, sir. Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah.
Yeah. No, very, very engrossing discussion. And as far as I am concerned, I have been not as a member of audit committee, but as a company secretary for almost 19 plus years in a listed company.
Request you to share your name and the company.
My name is Pradeep Parak. I was with Bajaj Group, Bajaj Hindustan Sugar.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm audible?
Yeah, very good.
Yeah. So as I said, basically, I was in corporate employment for more than 30 years. Initially in finance accounts, started with Birla Group, moved on to Ambuja Cement, and then for last 20 years, I was with Bajaj Group as company secretary. So transition from finance and accounting portfolio to corporate secretarial portfolio happened during my Ambuja days. The experience regarding the functioning of audit committee and board, primarily, I think it's no secret that the family run businesses in India, basically the processes are being carried out just for the sake of process. And say whatever I could contribute in terms of keeping the record straight, etc. That was my primary role, to provide input, to coordinate with maybe various departments, be it the operational department or marketing or accounting team, and give to the best of my ability a proper input in terms of audit committee material to be recorded. And in terms of discussion, as we all know, as Mr. Robin has already said, that maybe board members or committee members come down, have a cup of tea or some biscuits, and followed by lunch, etc. What can improve? I think there have been multiple suggestions that rather than keeping onus on independent directors, if like in US, if the onus is kept on the persons who are actually running the show, namely the CEO or maybe KMPs, that might give some positive results in my.
Very good. Thank you very much.
I have now started on my own. I have set up a company secretarial firm. So since last almost a year, I'm out of corporate employment and I've started my business. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Robinji. Thank you, Pradeep. Robinji, there were some requests by participants about sharing of personal experiences of you as a director. So if we...
Anupam?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I would also like Mr. Robin Banerjee or maybe Nipun or anybody can throw some light on these, independent directors' liability, because of the lack of corporate governance and in light of a lot of related party transactions, incorporate, diversion of funds and all. As an independent director on the board of one company, how will you be able to sort of know or control or catch such kind of malified transfers which happen to the group companies and the liability arising out of that?
Yes, sir, that's a good question. Sir, will you please take up?
Let me answer that, Mushid sir. First of all, independent directors cannot get to know. If there is a structured fraud going on within the organization, independent directors will only know if the management tells them something is happening. By visiting in a board meeting for 3 to 4 hours, where a lot of goodies will continue to happen. And once a quarter, that also, it is impossible for independent directors to know that something is going wrong. A strong audit committee helps, provided the audit committee is in dialogue with the internal auditors and the auditors and the CFOs of the company. And it is always a quality of management, which is important. But I think, Dushanji, that was not your question. Your question is, if the independent directors do figure out that there is a problem which has taken place, will the independent directors be held responsible? My answer is no. If the fraud has now been defined in Companies Act very clearly. And the responsibility of independent director is if he or she was involved himself or herself, or he had the knowledge of that fraud having been taken place. Now there are hundreds and thousands of frauds taken place, has come up in the public domain in the last 2 to 3 years. Never it had happened. I think the first one was Mr. Malia, and thereafter since 2015-16, loads of entrepreneurs have gone behind bars. Barring a very few cases, the independent directors have not yet been held responsible. Please look at the history. It was in IDBI Bank where two of the independent directors' passports were taken away, confiscated, and then of course after I think 6 or 9 months it was released. To my mind, it was incorrectly, and this was the IDBI Bank was nothing else but Mr. Vijay Mallya fraud, and it was the early days. Since then, some CFOs have been taken to task, not too many. The latest example is Cox and Kings, Mr. Khandelwal and Mr. Jain, who have now been behind bars, the CFO and the interim internal auditor. Barring Cox and Kings, the internal auditor and the CFO has been jailed. where there is reason to believe that the CFO himself did money laundering on behalf of the owner, and in the PMC Bank case, where the general manager internal audit, which is a lady, has been taken to task, is behind bars even she is behind bars even till today. Barring that, even the senior management has not been touched. It is the entrepreneurs who have been jailed, touched, penalized so far, which is very good. I must give full marks to a system which is evolving. India has not been used to this before 2015, 2016. I don't think I've heard of entrepreneurs being hauled up. It's all because of the bankruptcy code which has come in, and that is helping, no question about it. So to cut the long story short, as long as independent directors are not in the know and the knowledge or active connivance of a fraud, I don't think independent directors can be held responsible. And as of now, there is no blatant example of that happening too.
Yeah, but when you say that they are in connivance, suppose the board resolution comes for giving some advance to some group company or something, and the independent director doesn't have much knowledge about the purpose behind it, then will he be considered as a part of part of the whole thing?
I would still say no. Because I would think that independent directors will say this was part of normal business. The loans were being given in the past. It was getting recovered. I didn't know that it is being used for other purposes. It is used for either money laundering or related party transactions. I don't think so. But yes, one I must hasten to add, come 1st of December 2020, which is 10 days back, most of the independent directors will now be qualified independent directors. They would have passed the exam and they would have now known what is balance sheet, profit and loss account.
Right.
So earlier, I think independent directors could say, "Dekho, main to engineer hu, humko to pata hi nahi hai kya hota hai." Come 1st of December, can they take that stance? Maybe not. So things are getting a little more difficult for sure, and therefore independent directors have to be more careful. And chances are that, based on management declaration, management presentations, perhaps independent directors can still agree. But yes, things might become more difficult. But as of now, there is no reason to believe things are getting worse.
Right. Thank you.
Thanks, Robin. I would like to share a few observations about listed companies. Just a few months back, some independent directors resigned from a major entertainment company. There were some reflections of giving funds to group company. But just we saw that company said we were strengthening the board, and a very well-known, very respected investment banker joined the board of that company and also purchased the shares and disclosed to the stock exchange he is purchasing a large quantity of shares. So there are different views. Some directors resign and some new one joined, and sometimes the new ones are much more reputed. So what is the fact? We have to continue doing research and see that we have eyes and ears open. That is a professional skill. Everybody has to contribute. I would also mention about access to independent directors by stakeholders. There was a media issue last week. Then on Thursday, a top major global companies present in over 120 countries organized a conference call with all institutional investors and stakeholders with open access, not only to the management, but open access to the independent directors who have been independent directors since last 7-8 years, and also the chairman of the audit committee. There was very live interactive sessions with the independent directors. This is how the market is evolving, the maturity, what the stakeholders want, what the institutional investors want, what even the HNIs want, the top investment bankers want. They want access to independent directors, and they come in con calls within 24 hours of a news item, could be a rumor, could be a baseless rumor on the net. This is what's happening. Access to independent directors is vital. The company management, they mentioned, you have full access. Why don't you come and meet the secretarial department, meet the company secretary. He will show you the reports before you publish in the media. But that did not happen. Media stories are there. There is a own agenda. But access to independent directors is very important. They have a say they should not be blamed for their lack of knowledge or lack of activism, because lots of things happen behind closed door meets. Sometimes there are live interactive discussions. As we know, they happen in Wipro and Mahindra Group. They are known to have war rooms and open discussions with not only the board, with the key management personnel before the strategies are decided. So access of all investors to independent directors is happening. There are con call transcripts which are available openly, so one can go through them and use that access and take decisions properly after deep dive and deep study. Pramod, would like you to share a few thoughts.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, certainly. Pramod, you are there?
My question is that
yeah, Hemant. Yeah.
Robin sir or to Mr. Kannan, how far the D&O insurance is helpful to in the case of independent director?
D&O insurance that now companies are taking this, but as it was explained, Mr. Robin Banerjee, it should be more than the insurance. It should be more of prevention by going through all these details, passing this exam, understanding. Role of independent director should be to prevent that from happening. Of course, D&O insurance is there for many large companies are taking this insurance so that any liability comes, they will be saved from that. So D&O insurance, even for other directors also, companies are taking, so that
for all that, right.
so that independent liability doesn't come on a individual side. So company pays for the insurance. So some cases compensation may be very high, in which case individual will not be able to bear. Mr. Banerjee has got some point.
Hemant Bhai, I think the D&O insurance policy basically covers the money to be used for fighting a legal case. That's what the primary objective is, because that could go into crores of rupees. You have to appoint the best of lawyers, and it may go for years together, and it can be a false case. It could wipe out a person's savings, lifetime savings. So the D&O is primary objective is to fight the case. Now, if the court believes that there is a personal liability on a person, personal liability tabhi aata hai when that person was involved in a fraud. That is not covered in D&O, sir. If you have done fraud, D&O will never pay. But the D&O will go up to fighting and proving that you were not responsible. But if you are held
all legal cost,
criminal, then nothing can happen. Then you have to pay from your pocket.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Robin, I would like to answer one very vital question. You are wearing two hats now, one as a corporate CEO and also another one as a chairman of an audit committee in a company where you have no executive role. As is well known, the CEO of the company, whether it is an unlisted company or a listed company or a global company, the CEO is often incentivized and gets his remuneration, powers and perks based on the reported performance of the company. So there is always a temptation to report a very high profits quarterly to quarter and also year to year, based on which he gets incentives. So from the hat of a chairman of audit committee and an active participant in the audit committee independently, how do you view such issues? What precaution and safeguards you get to ensure that the earnings are fair and they are not manipulated at the behest of a CEO or a CFO who has to often cooperate with the CEO, although he is also accountable to the board. This is happening to a large scale in global companies where ESOPs are very, very high, to a significant percentage of the total ownership. And also there is a trend seen in Indian companies, whether listed or unlisted. Ultimately, performance and money is the key. Robin, sir.
A chairman of the audit committee is no different from an independent director. After all, he's an independent director only. And independent director will have only limited information, whatever be the situation is. So it is definitely important for the independent directors, of course, including the audit committee, to know that the sales and profits have been appropriately stated. If the chairman of the audit committee does find out that they are doctoring the balance sheet and profit and loss account, the best thing is to explain to the CEO and the CFO that this is not on, I will not permit. But if they force that action to be done, then I presume resignation is the only option. I always believe, if you resign, you don't solve the problem. If you're an insider, you can solve the problem much better. Resignation does not take away the responsibility and liabilities of the past. Maybe it is going on for 3-4 years while you were a director. And now on the 5th or 6th year, you are saying, no, main aur karne dunga. I will not allow this to happen. Now, what happens to the last 4 years? Just because you resign doesn't take away your responsibility or liability. So I would rather feel that being an insider, you can solve the problem. And if still it doesn't get solved, what else can you do? Can you be a whistleblower? Yeah, of course you can. As you know, one independent director has been a whistleblower in the recent case. The Yes Bank is an independent director who was a whistleblower. So you can become a whistleblower also. It is possible that you write a letter to the SEBI. I'm an independent director. I'm not comfortable with that situation. I would request ED to be investigation to happen. So there are various methods by which this can be solved. But yes, if as a chairman of the audit committee, one gets to know that there's hanky-panky going on, I think the matter is very serious.
There is a very important issue raised by one of the participants. He says there is not much protection to whistleblowers in India. Any comments from any of the panelists?
I agree. I completely agree. One sentence I will only say. Whistleblowers, the Indian ecosystem, the society does not take whistleblower, whereas a whistleblower is taken positively in the developed world. People do not understand what is a whistleblower in India. And therefore they are castigated, thrown away from the society. Society doesn't cooperate, they lose friends. The housing society where he or she will be staying may be castigated. Matter is very serious. That's the problem. It's a societal issue than anything else. I completely agree. Whistleblower is not a good thing to happen in India. Plus there are no police protection and the government will not protect you till it is held that the yes, whistleblower complaint was indeed correct, and that could take ages to get. So yes, the matter is very serious. I agree with it.
Thanks, Nipun. Some observations from you on this issue.
Yeah, so couple of points. One, of course, on this whistleblower thing. I think in India, it's evolving now. We've had a few cases, but probably there could be a lot more given the kind of jugaad that a lot of Indian businesses typically end up doing. But even globally, if you look at the whistleblower situation, exactly as the situation what Robin mentioned is there in India, is something that has been there globally as well. There have been, if you recollect, a very old movie that had come about on a whistleblower as far as the cigarette business was concerned. And you really typically saw a similar situation where there is virtually sort of an embargo on the whistleblower. I mean, he faces sanctions all across within society or within the company. So that's something which probably is an evolving situation in India. But I think in terms of responsibility, they do a fabulous job in terms of coming out with any unusual situations or fraud-like situations that are there. My sense is there probably need to be more regulation that needs to come in around the whistleblower for the simple reason that one sees a fair amount of stock price fluctuation or a huge amount of stock price volatility coming about whenever there is this kind of an announcement that comes by. Probably the way Infosys managed it, whereby the board took up did a complete investigation once there was a whistleblower complaint that was there, ensured that whatever resolution that was required was done, whatever remedial action that was required was done. That shows true governance standard that is there in terms of taking action against any whistleblower complaint that is there. Just to also step back on the point Dushanbhai was making on liabilities of independent directors, I think it's important to ensure that at board meetings, whenever there are related party transactions and or any untoward observation that could come by, has the independent director done enough due diligence in terms of asking questions, getting it minuted, ensuring that he has satisfied himself that there is no wrongdoing that is happening, any fraudulent practice that is happening. I think that's important to show in terms of ensuring that you've taken due care in terms of the extent of due diligence that you've done. The other point is, please also remember that Companies Act permits our independent director to suggest an independent investigation and the company bears the entire expense for it. So there is there can be a sort of audit, separate audit that can be done, or an investigation that can be done, or whatever, a forensic audit, or any of an external investigation that can be undertaken by an external authority, and the company has to bear expenses for that. So that's something as an additional measure which Dushanbhai, an independent director, could potentially use to protect himself.
Yeah, Nipun, great, thanks.
Any observations from panel members? Any participant?
Yeah.
Feel free.
Yeah.
We would like to cover all issues, all relevant practical experiences for benefit of all stakeholders, of global companies, of Indian companies, and the way forward. As you know, all the co-founders of the think tank conferences group, we said our focus is on research, resources, representation, and reach out. This reach out initiative by the team members is really wonderful, where it reaches out to all stakeholders globally through technology platform, Prime Minister's Digital India initiative. So one can reach out and also share experiences about global companies and Indian companies and the way ahead. Any observations? Please share.
We request participants, in case they have any question, they can share, and we'll try and answer that.
Yeah, Aditya, I have one question. I am insolvency professional. See, as an independent director, if we look for some independent director now, the ID directory is also available. But we find that the company is still not appointing based on the ID database. So what do you think in next, how much time it will take to have a professionals on the board from the ID database? Or it is just a whim and fancy of the promoters who will bring the independent director as per their will?
Let me try.
Very valid observation. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me try to answer the question, sir. When will it happen? I think by April, May 2021, you will start seeing things will happen. Why? Because there is no government penalty that if you have board members who are not qualified, that you shall be jailed, or there'll be a fine of 50,000 rupees or 5 lakh rupees. Aisa abhi tak hai nahi. Therefore, people are going to wait and watch. Then the first declaration which the directors have to give, annual declaration, as you know, independent directors have to give a declaration of independence in April. So when they will give that, that's the time they will also have to certify that they have a qualified independent director. And therefore, if they cannot, and if they don't, some companies, I think, who prefers to do good governance will then ask them to, sir, then you resign, madam, you resign kar do, we will have to follow. Will they resign? We don't know. If they don't resign, continues to hold their position, what happens? We don't know. Because there are companies, in spite of the law being there that every listed company has to have one woman director. You know, even PSU companies don't have a woman director even till today. Large PSU companies. And they are going on, nothing happens. So some will correct, some will not. Things might become better, but will it change overnight? I don't think so, but it will take time. The second question, sir, is that there is a list of independent directors as per IICA already available today. Will the promoters use that? I don't think so. They will still choose the ones whom they are comfortable with. I scratch your back, you scratch mine syndrome. However, that list, that choosing their own people will have to be from the list in course of time.
One more question I have, like director, one company can be a director in 20 companies. So as an independent director, if the person is in independent director, they will also be in 20 companies or 15 companies, you can say like this way. But what do you feel, how many companies one should have to be in as an independent director?
So the current law says 10, and in my view, that's too much. How can you concentrate in even 10?
Yeah.
That's how it is. And sir, I think it all boils down to the valuation of the company. If a company follows good governance practice, their market cap will keep going up, which many entrepreneurs do not understand. Entrepreneurs do not understand the market cap as doesn't always need to be with the bottom line and top line. It is an ecosystem. It is the directors you have, their pedigree you have, the way you manage your things, the information which is available in the public domain. More important, the quality of the product and service you produce, of consistency or not. So it's a whole ecosystem. And therefore, all these things, hopefully, all of us on this call, if we continue to tell others, Dekho, these are all helping you to increase your market cap, maybe people will start following good governance principles.
Thanks. One valuable.
To my knowledge, can I just elaborate it more? The question of Mr. Dinesh. To my knowledge, as per Companies Act, you can be an independent director in maximum 10 companies, and out of which 7 may be listed companies. Just want,
Yeah, I would like to share one valuable observation which has come out of discussions with all panelists and many participants is market cap valuation. In fact, I would like to share on this issue about participation by a director. On the chat also it is mentioned the director should speak at the right time, at the right thing, and also they should study all the reports. There was a discussion with the board of the directors, some directors on Wipro board several years ago. And the point of view of whether one can study and share views openly. The Wipro board members shares, the management encourages dissent. One can share, discuss, study, participate, and also record dissent. Decision is taken by majority, and ultimately when the decision is taken, all the directors should work collectively for the success of the decision. It happens often in cases of M&A and valuation. The company has to grow. It may be the right company to acquire. And based on that, there is a view taken on increase in shareholder value. But how many companies encourage dissent? At one point of time, being a stakeholder in Infosys, I had the interaction with Mr. Narayan Murthy. I shared this issue about Wipro board governance issues. My direct question to Mr. Narayan Murthy was, how do you conduct board meetings? Do you encourage dissent? And I gave him the example because at that time Wipro was one of the best wealth creators and the promoter was in a top 10 list. So I clearly asked him, do you encourage dissent? Ultimately, it is always good to have glamorous boards. We know of another IT company which had a glamorous board and topmost professors from US universities, which failed and which was taken over. So this right to discuss, study, and discuss openly and dissent. Not only that, if it is a good decision taken collectively, to go on together with the board and delegate the executive authority to the top management team and create shareholder value for all stakeholders is the prime qua non for all independent directors and board members. Very fair and transparent way. I would like anybody else to share any views on shareholder wealth creation and good companies. Any participant? Very good views are coming on the chat. Very good experience stories. People are also talking about the remuneration issues. This issue was also raised. Some CEOs in big companies were getting very fat remuneration, which also the regulator also observed there should be some restraint.
One group which has created wealth. It's a good corporate governance. Of course, this must be the most valued group today. It's HDFC Group. If you go to HDFC Group, I remember I took my first housing loan about almost 25 years ago. When I repaid about 22 years ago, they handed over the document over the counter. About 15 years ago, I took a loan from a leading private bank. And these people took 6 months to deliver the document to me. So if you see HDFC as a group, if you go to any company, the system and procedure is the most important. You'll never see that, of course, when Mr. Puri retired, they are talking about him. Otherwise, they are always talking about company only, and system and procedure was the most important. So that is how this company went and created wealth. So they always had well-defined procedures, well-defined systems. They clearly said who should do what. All that was clearly written, and no one was allowed to deviate from that. So deviation of the system and procedure was seen as a kind of violation. So that is how they created. Or you take a company like Tata Consultancy Service. We see in all the IT companies how many times CEOs have changed. Whenever a CEO changes, how many news items we see that they are changing. Wipro also they tried changing 10 times. But whenever in the last 10, 12 years, 4 CEOs have changed in TCS. But all was smooth. Nothing to talk about it. So there are companies which are run basically on system, procedure, they strictly follow. And when these companies follow, that itself is a great corporate governance. And that itself creates a lot of wealth for these companies because their scope for error and fraud is very, very limited. That's maybe.
Good observations on the group, right? There is a focus on substance over form, disclosures and transparency, and open speak in the group from the board members and the chairman of the company also. Very good trendsetter and example to the whole world, to the global fraternity of very good corporate governance practices by an Indian company with very good market share, very good growth record.
Manoj ji, Mitesh here.
Yeah, please share your thoughts. Mitesh,
so I have
in a top professional firm. Please say a few words about yourself and share your observations.
So I have a mix of observations.
Please put your video on also for the benefit of all.
Yeah. So I have a mix of observations. Even though the Companies Act 2013 has made mandatory to have the guidelines of the age restriction of 75 years, but then there is a exception defined to it where with the help of special resolution, the person beyond 75 years can continue. So I have seen many companies where independent directors, though are not adding value, but still continue with this using this caveat of special resolution. The promoters are using this caveat. Second, I have seen even the companies who are way forward and ahead of times, and even independent directors give the time over there, and there is a value creation to the company, and even whatever the shares they are holding or ESOPs they are being given in terms of getting the contemporary areas getting audited or getting involved themselves in the terms of appointment of the audit agency, internal audit agency specifically, the scope defining and all. And from the wealth creation, I have one question to the panel, whether there is a potential we can talk to the regulators of having the evaluation of the board on a periodical basis. Currently, it's not mandatory, and that is why the entire scheme of the things is getting defeated, whether in the form of having those people who are not adding the value and still continues on the board. And it is not only the shareholders' wealth, but even the government or the lenders are there. The money is involved, and independent directors are not who are there are not able to join on those companies because the promoters wants to drive in their manner, in their fashion.
But now there is a directive. But there is a directive now on evaluation of the board as well as the directors of the board. That has already been introduced by SEBI, but only we have to see how this is being practiced by companies. That is
But is
already
it mandatory, and whether any market cap threshold has been defined? Say a market cap about 500 CR, they need to have this on periodical basis. How is it?
I think it is turnover and capital, if I am not mistaken. I don't
Okay.
know.
Yeah. There are two things, Mitesh, I want to state.
Yeah.
Now, three things. One, to state that the regulator will evaluate the board is not going to happen and it should not happen. These are
No, I'm saying they can have the mechanism where the companies, it becomes mandatory for the companies to get it evaluated.
Yes,
The
I'll
board.
come to that.
Yeah.
So one is to regulator doing it, should not happen and it's not happening. Number two, all listed companies are now required to have a board evaluation. Whether they do it or not, they do it on paper is another matter. Even once the board evaluation came into picture, there was so much of fume and fury from the industry saying that how can the board be evaluated? You have no business to be in. They said board evaluation should be put up in the website of the company. Now they have withdrawn that notification. It's no longer in the website. You know, the entrepreneurs in India are all powerful. Kotak Committee Report of Governance. They say chairman and managing director has to be separate. The entrepreneurs saying nothing doing. We'll all have to do it together. So now they have deferred it till April 2022. So the ecosystem in India is not very helpful. And number three, the 75 years and more, as you know, independent directors can have now 2 terms, 5 years and 5 years. Then thereafter, necessarily, they have to retire. They can come back through special resolution later on. But yes, some improvement has taken place, but you are right. As long as the 10 years have not gone, people who are above 75 years, who is a good friend of the owner, will continue.
Yeah.
But they have a drink together in the night. Otherwise, how will they have a drink together in the night?
That's true.
Thanks. I would like to take now some issues by the eminent participation. And I think many issues have been covered, which had not been covered. We will take it up now. Minutely review reports. Most important, ensure that the questions and comments are adequately minuted in board and committee meetings where he has participated.
Manoj,
yeah.
Dinesh Bhai wants to ask a question. He's raising hands for quite some time.
Sure. Yes. Please put on your video, mention the name of the company, and share your observation.
Yes. Good afternoon to all of you. My question is, see, in the several companies, you know, where I am an independent director of 2 or 3 companies. Earlier, I resigned from one company, and whenever I am our chairman of the audit committee also. So for all the meetings which are held quarterly, I insist that at least 4 days before the agenda should be circulated to me, and I ask all the questions, and all the things are in file with me. Whatever is happening in the committees in which I am there as a chairman or as a member, I see it with each and every paper. I keep it in my file as a protection for myself in future. Am I right or am I wrong? Because I think that my protection, as several of the panel members have said, you have to protect yourself. So I'm protecting myself in that particular manner by keeping all the records intact for myself wherever I am involved. And that should be one of the weapons that we should use, you know, basically.
So there is a secretarial standard which says that 7 days ahead of the audit committee, independent director should receive the entire deck of the matters which are to be discussed.
Yes.
So you have a full right to get those papers, and it is your custody.
Yeah, and even even after the meeting, the minutes also I get it on my email, and I take out a printout and keep it in my file.
Yeah, that's perfect.
I believe we need to maintain the info security for those material if you are printing it.
Yeah. No, that is kept. That is kept. That is
because that is more important in any
and
organization these days.
secondly, in the query box, I have raised a question about Hawkins. If you can go through it. In Hawkins, when I have attended the AGM 2 or 3 years ago, I mean, I asked that there are 3 independent directors who are above the age of 85. The chairman very clearly told me in the meeting that they are my club member friends. I said, 85 you should resign. Above 80 you should resign. I mean, it's okay. I mean, enough now. I mean, you have been in the board for 15, 20 years now. But the chairman said, no, I mean, I want them on the board. So, I mean, I've asked that question in the list also. I mean, or members of the panel can answer that question, please.
Loyalty is a very important ingredient for independent directors.
So that the independence can be shown. I have one view for all of us here. I do understand many of us are saying that what is our responsibilities? Independent directors it's difficult for them to find out there is a fraud going on. A lot of questions are on the chat box I could see. The way to protect that is to please take the CEO, CFO certification every quarter. That certification which is required under the listed company, it's not unlisted company requirement, but it's a good practice as an independent director, even if it's an unlisted company, take a declaration every quarter from the CEO and CFO that the accounts have been properly prepared and they are not in the knowledge of any fraud going on in the organization. Please take that and keep it in your file. As a chairman of the audit committee, if you keep it, that should be good enough to my view to really protect ourselves.
I would like to add loyalty to truth, ethics, independence, and integrity is more important than loyalty to other people who have a certain agenda, right?
But Manoj, that applies to all the directors, including the family directors or executive directors,
Exactly. Loyalty to ethics, integrity, independence, and stakeholder objectives in the best possible way.
Manoj, I have been telling in the meetings also that you are a trustee of the shareholders and you should act as such. Simple.
This is what the EGFC board members have been talking about and setting an example.
And you must have heard me saying this sentence often in the AGMs. Even Robin Banerjee must have experienced that particular thing in several of the meetings where he is there. Earlier, I should tell him in the chair.
Very good points which have come on the chat. Independent directors should be contributing in the board meetings, asking the right question at the right time, studying all the reports, and also a lot of company secretaries, how they can add value, what the regulator should do in terms of responsibility for independent directors, meeting with operational heads at regular intervals to get first-hand information. Many CEOs may consider that as intervention, why they should meet with the operational heads. So I know about one independent director of a very well-known who got the best CFO award. He said he studied for 14 hours, did research on internet just for one agenda item in a major listed company. Yes. There was a big fat file of 200 pages, including addendums and this. Just for one agenda item, he studied 14 hours of research and then contributed in a board meeting. This is what is expected of all others. Not only that, he invited views from all other directors and also asked several times in the board meeting, any dissent, please do, so we can learn from it and try to improve the strategy.
Yes.
This is what we discussed in corporate governance, corporate strategy. It is the spirit and the substance which count. There are role models we have to learn from. Not only that, there are rogues also, right? Maybe lots of experienced investors know a lot about rogues. It's a question of the good, bad, and ugly. And I think lots of companies in India can set the best examples of corporate strategy and corporate governance to the whole world. It is possible. We have learnings, we have regulations, we have maturity. It is only about the intent which matters. Executive skills are there, talent is there. We have our talent which are working all over the world as global CEOs in the best countries, creating wealth for other companies globally. Talent is there, spirit is there, everybody needs encouragement. I feel everybody participants in this think tank webinar for the benefit of stakeholders has benefited from the same, and also A series is there, continuous series for the benefit of all stakeholders, corporate governance, corporate strategy, wealth creation, listed companies, unlisted companies, mutual funds, PMS, uh, HNIs, investment bankers, research, lots of issues raised by professionals on the board as key management personnel and service providers. I'm sure the team will take it up and see that all the stakeholders' issues are addressed fairly and transparently through the medium of interactive discussion. So my pleasure, and I feel most of the participants' issues has been raised fairly, and the series will continue, and many members can continue sharing issues and also spread the word about the think tank webinars being
Manoj bhai,
conducted since so many years.
Manoj bhai, I have one small query.
Sure.
I am Rohit Pateria from HDFC Bank. I am in Digital Bank. So
Yes.
although Mr. Robin Banerjee has very precisely defined responsibility of independent directors, including protection, unless unless the independent director is directly involved, he need not be guilty. The only question that is coming to my mind on that, in case of a resolution coming for advance to a related party, what right an independent director will have? Will he have the right to question the end use, or does he have implicit or explicit power to question the end use of the, because misappropriation at times happens by these kind of transfers only, giving advance or loan to related parties.
Two quick ones. One, Rohit, is obviously if you know, as an independent director knows that this is happening, he should protest. And if in spite of that, with the majority decision, the loan goes ahead, you should insist the company secretary to minute that you did not agree to this. So your note of dissent and that you were against the motion should be minuted. Then you are covered in a way. Because ultimately it's a democracy, the majority views prevail. And please understand, the majority is always with the entrepreneur. He has the majority control of the board.
Okay.
Tanmay, you have raised your hand for a while. Can you ask your question, Tanmay?
Yeah, thank you, Aditya. I think it's a very good session. One insight about the corporate governance, the whistleblowing, independent director. I just very well said also that the normally as a CA we not able to highlight the fraud which is about to happen. It's only the whistleblower which raised the concern. But I think so. The question or the concern is the CARO 2020 which is coming up. That is CARO 20 from next year. It has a point of whistleblower that the auditor has taken care of the whistleblower meetings or the concern raised, or internal IFC controls, enhancing their controls and reporting on that. Will solve or the corporate governance will improve that corporate governance? That's what my question is, because the auditing is something different and the corporate governance is something different.
My personal view, CARO 20 will be a very big development. And I do hope every auditor, every member of our own community goes by the spirit of CARO 20 and really we sign off appropriately and accurately. And if we do that, the governance is going to go manifold step up. It's a great step. In fact, I sometimes wonder how my colleagues are going to sign CARO 20. I sometimes wonder, because we know that the stocks don't exist, the debtors don't exist. We know that. We know the loans are not recoverable, and still we sign a balance sheet profit and loss account. We all know that. And how are we going to sign CARO 20? I honestly don't know the answer, but it's a great step.
Even in the last question also it was asked that that loans which is given to related parties and their rollover loans are being taken care, their interest not being covered. I think that CARO 2020 has covered it very nicely. All areas have been covered. So I think the auditor has a bigger role to play now to have a corporate governance along with the independent directors and other things. So I personally agree, sir.
Correct, Tanmay. Absolutely true.
Thank you, sir. Thanks. Thank you, Aditya ji.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much. Like we just wanted to highlight few things and then just wrap it for a day because it's almost been a lunchtime now. Like we have this also played on YouTube. So like in case you feel that you are unable to join the Zoom meeting, you can also join in on YouTube. And like to mention, last time when we had last Saturday the meeting, it has been appreciated and we actually have 900 plus views in that. So this meeting will also be stored there. Feel free in case you want to revisit, rehear few things which we have discussed here. Thanks all the panelists and it was really a great session and we had a lot of knowledge shared among ourselves and we just thanks Robin again because I really appreciate the examples he gave. Those examples are real time real life examples that will really connect well on what we need to explain. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Aditya. Wonderful job by the whole team.
Thank
Thanks
you
to all the participants.
Yeah, we will end the meeting for today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.